Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you're watching from today. I'd love to know. And if you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to like and subscribe. All right, let's jump in. The stars in neutral zone, 42, shimmered like tiny sparks in a black sea, quiet and cold. For years, this space had been untouched, a no man's land between two powerful empires. No one dared cross it. No ships, no messages, no mistakes. But today, the silence broke. Floating between the twin moons of Varda Drift was something that didn't belong. A massive object, dark and heavy, casting a shadow that stretched for miles. From far away, it could have been mistaken for an abandoned station or a forgotten mining rig. But the closer the patrols looked, the worse their fear grew. It was a warship, and not just any warship, a human one. Captain Drex of the Imperial Guard stood frozen on the bridge of his cruiser, his three hearts pounding hard against his armored chest. The holographic screen showed the ship clearly now. Long metal flanks, silent thrusters, hull lined with battle scars older than most of the crew watching it. No lights, no signals, no insignia. Just silence, like a ghost that had drifted too far from home. "Run the scans again," Drex ordered, his voice cracking slightly. "Confirm it's real." The officers scrambled, paws flying across their consoles. Seconds later, the results came back, unchanged. Human warship. Class: Titan. Model: Earthhammer MK7. Drex's throat went dry. The last time a human Titan-class ship had appeared uninvited, 3 star sectors had fallen in a single night. They weren't just ships. They were declarations, warnings. The ship didn't move, didn't speak. It just sat there, daring anyone to come closer. Captain Drex backed away from the screen, his mind racing. Neutral space wasn't neutral anymore. Something had arrived. Something very human, and something very wrong. A low alarm started to buzz across the bridge, soft but urgent, like a whisper rising into a scream. Captain Drex barely heard it. His mind was busy calculating things far worse than sirens could warn against. Neutral Zone 42 was supposed to be safe, or at least forgotten. The old treaties had marked it off limits to everyone. Humans, the Dominion, even the Outer Rim Lords had all agreed. No ships, no colonies, no battles. It was a dead place by law. And now it wasn't dead anymore. If a human warship had wandered in by accident, that would be one kind of problem. A dangerous one, but manageable. You could send warnings, call for talks, make threats from a safe distance. Humans didn't like negotiations much, but they understood strength. Sometimes. But a Titan-class warship didn't wander. It didn't get lost. It arrived on purpose. Drex felt the full weight of that truth settle onto his shoulders like a stone blanket. His claws twitched at his sides, itching to lash out at something. Anything. But there was no enemy yet. Only a silent, sleeping monster hanging in the void. He turned sharply to his communications officer. "Send word to command. Immediate priority. Tell them exactly what we see." The officer's voice shook as he answered, "Already sent, sir. On all emergency bands." Good. At least they were moving fast. But Drex knew, deep in his bones, it wouldn't be enough. Not this time. Across the sector, other patrol ships were scrambling. Tiny dots on the long-range scans began to shift direction, steering toward the threat like moths to a fire. Drex's screen filled with new signals: battle cruisers, destroyers, interceptor wings. The Empire was waking up. But would it be fast enough? Drex thought about what would happen if it wasn't. If the human warship wasn't removed, if it wasn't forced out, destroyed, or scared into retreat, the fragile peace between the empires would shatter like glass under a hammer. Treaties would mean nothing. Borders would dissolve into battlegrounds. Worlds that had lived in peace for decades would find themselves caught in the crossfire of a war they didn't start and couldn't survive. And it would be worse than the last time. Much worse. Because humans didn't fight like other species. They didn't come with massive fleets and grand declarations. They came with quiet force, fast strikes, shadows that ate cities before anyone even knew they were there. Humans didn't just break empires. They erased them. The bridge crew worked faster now, urgency tightening the air until it felt like breathing through cloth. New images appeared on the main screen. Long-range visuals from drones moving closer to the Earth hammer MK7. The ship was even larger up close, its hull dark like a bruised sky. Across its surface, strange patterns shimmered. Not battle scars, but old war paint, human symbols that no one outside of Earth could fully understand anymore. Marks of victory so ancient they were half legend. And still, the ship did not move, did not speak, did not blink. It just waited. "Sir," the tactical officer said, voice clipped and hurried. "Permission to arm forward cannons and lock targeting systems." Drex hesitated. His mind was a battlefield. Every instinct screamed to prepare for war. But he also knew the first move mattered. The first shot fired could not be taken back. It would be the spark that set a galaxy on fire. "Hold position," Drex said finally. "Targeting systems only. No firing unless ordered." The officer nodded stiffly. Another alarm went off, louder this time. Incoming transmission, but not from the human ship. From command. The hologram shimmered and expanded, showing a grim-faced Admiral Harsk. His scales were a dull gray, a sign of long years spent surviving battles he should have died in. "Captain Drex," the Admiral said, his voice low and heavy, "you are ordered to contain the threat. Full lockdown of Neutral Zone 42 authorized. Use all necessary force." Drex swallowed. "And if containment fails?" Admiral Harsk's eyes narrowed. "Then you hold the line until reinforcements arrive. Do not allow the human ship to pass into Imperial space. Do not allow it to escape. Do not let it reach any colony worlds." The transmission cut off before Drex could ask what he was really thinking. Why? Why was Command so afraid? Because deep down, they knew. The human ship hadn't come by mistake. It hadn't come for exploration. It had come with a purpose, a mission. And if they couldn't stop it here, now, at the edges of forgotten space, then there would be nowhere safe to hide when it reached the heart of the Empire. Another officer spoke up, breaking his thoughts. "Sir, updated scans. We're detecting faint energy signatures from the human ship. Systems are powering up." Drex's blood turned cold. He stared at the screen. Tiny sparks of light crawled across the Earth hammer's hull, running like veins awakening from a long sleep. Shields flickered to life. Faint, but there. The engines rumbled low enough that even through space's emptiness, the long-range sensors could catch the vibration. It was waking up. And when it was fully awake, he didn't know if even the Empire's finest would be enough. "Prepare all ships for defensive formation," Drex said quietly. "No one fires until I give the order." On the main screen, the human warship slowly, almost lazily, shifted its angle. Not toward the Imperial fleet gathering nearby. Not toward the stars behind it. It turned directly toward the Imperial core systems, as if it knew exactly where it was going, as if it had been aiming there all along. The silence on the bridge was heavy, the kind of silence that felt sharp against the skin, like standing too close to a storm you couldn't see yet, but could feel in your bones. Captain Drex tightened his fists behind his back, staring hard at the human ship turning in the darkness. His mind raced through possibilities, none of them good. This wasn't a lost freighter, or a scout ship running low on supplies. This was a warship moving with purpose. Steady, slow, unhurried, like a predator that had already decided its prey had nowhere to run. The Earthhammer Mk7 shifted again, now angling itself as if aligning with invisible points in space. The ship's engines pulsed quietly, giving off low, rhythmic beats, too low to hear without sensors, but somehow Drex could feel them in his chest, syncing with his own heartbeat in a way that made his skin crawl. "Sir," came a voice from navigation, too quiet at first to break the spell. "Sir, we're detecting more." Drex snapped his attention toward the officer. "Speak clearly." The young ensign swallowed, double-checking the readings. His fingers danced over the glowing keys, trying to force the ship's aging sensors to give him answers. The hologram updated, pixelated shapes flickering into view. "There are multiple signals," the ensign said, voice cracking. "Small, cloaked, surrounding the Earthhammer. We didn't detect them at first. They're using stealth tech." "Humans brought backup," Drex said under his breath. The realization hit the bridge like a slap. It wasn't just one ship. It was a force. A quiet, hidden one. Invisible until it wanted to be seen. The Earthhammer Mk7 hadn't come alone. It had brought hunters with it. Drex leaned in toward the tactical screen, watching as the stealth signal slowly appeared, like eyes opening in the dark. Sleek shapes, smaller than the warship, but fast, deadly. Frigates, most likely. Human stealth frigates. Designed not to fight toe-to-toe, but to slip through defenses, slice throats in the dark, and vanish before alarms could sound. He could already imagine it. If a battle started, the frigates would move first, disabling comms, crippling engines, isolating ships. And then the Earthhammer would strike, heavy and unstoppable, cleaning up what was left. It wasn't a fleet prepared for war. It was a fleet prepared for surgical destruction. "Estimate their number," Drex ordered. The ensign frowned, sweat beading at his brow. "Best guess? 7. Maybe more. Hard to tell. They're jamming our scans even while cloaked." Drex exhaled slowly, his mind piecing together the scale of what they faced. 1 Titan-class carrier, at least 7 stealth frigates, and how many more just beyond their reach, unseen. The Empire had sent patrol ships into Neutral Zone 42, expecting peace. Maybe a warning skirmish at worst. They had not prepared for a human strike team sitting like a loaded gun in their backyard. "We need reinforcements," Drex said, his voice low but certain, immediate, sector-wide. The communications officer was already ahead of him, fingers flying across her console. But inside, Drex knew reinforcements might come too late. A heavy weight settled deeper into his gut. Not just fear, but a cold certainty. They had poked something they didn't understand, and now it was awake. The ship's lights dimmed for a moment, just a flicker, as the Earth Hammer's energy shields grew brighter, stronger. Then, without warning, one of the stealth frigates made a move. It didn't decloak, it didn't fire. It simply drifted forward, almost lazily, until it broke the Empire's perimeter sensors. And then it vanished again. Gone. Not destroyed. Just invisible once more, blending back into the shadows like it had never been there at all. The message was clear. We can touch you whenever we want. The crew on the bridge stiffened. Drex could smell the fear now, thick and sharp in the recycled air. Officers snapped to attention, their training forcing them to hold their posts, but none of them could hide the terror glittering in their eyes. The human ships weren't threatening to attack. They were showing that attack would be pointless. They had already won the first move without firing a single shot. "Sir," the weapons officer said carefully, "I recommend arming all nuclear payloads and loading them into torpedo tubes." Drex hesitated again. Nukes. In neutral space. It would be a political disaster. A spark not just for war, but for total galactic collapse. But looking at the silent force arrayed before him, Drex realized something else. Something even worse. They might not even have the chance to launch them. Because if the humans decided to strike, it would be over before the Empire's missiles ever left their tubes. He paced slowly across the bridge, the metal floor cold beneath his boots. Each step echoed too loudly in the stunned silence. "Prepare nuclear torpedoes," he said finally. "But do not target lock. Passive systems only. No aggression unless they move first." "Yes, sir." Another officer called out, voice tight, "Multiple new signals entering the sector, sir. Non-imperial signatures. Unknown origin." Drex's stomach dropped. More human ships? Other species sensing blood in the water? Pirates? Rebels? He didn't know. But the neutral zone was becoming a battlefield, whether they liked it or not. The Earth Hammer MK7 remained at the center of it all, unmoving, untouchable, unstoppable. And for the first time in years, Captain Drex, a veteran of 17 border skirmishes and 2 major wars, felt truly helpless. Not because he didn't have weapons, not because he didn't have soldiers, but because he knew, deep down, that no matter what they did next, the humans were already 5 steps ahead. On the bridge of the Imperial cruiser, Vigilant Spear, the quiet was more dangerous than any alarm. Captain Drex felt it deep in his bones. The kind of silence that came not from safety, but from predators circling. Invisible, but close enough to touch. The Earth Hammer, MK7, stayed still in the darkness, looming like a storm cloud that refused to break. Around it, the hidden stealth frigates drifted silently. Their presence felt more than seen. Every scan the Imperial ships launched was jammed, scrambled, or bent back on itself like a cruel joke. Even the best sensor arrays couldn't pierce the black veil the humans had thrown across the battlefield. The Imperial fleet looked strong on paper. Dozens of ships, bristling with weapons, reinforced hulls, and years of battle-tested crews. But strength meant little when you couldn't see the enemy. It was like trying to fight shadows with swords. Drex knew the first mistake would be theirs, and he didn't have to wait long to see it happen. A sharp ping echoed from the bridge consoles. One of the forward destroyers, the Iron Howl, had moved just a little too close to the Earthhammer's projected boundary. "Warning issued?" Drex barked. The comms officer nodded, panic flashing across her eyes. "Sent and acknowledged, sir. They didn't pull back." Drex's mouth twisted into a grimace. Maybe the destroyer's captain didn't believe the threat was real. Maybe he thought the humans were bluffing. Or maybe, like so many others before him, he thought a show of imperial strength could scare Earth's ghosts back into the shadows. He would learn the truth soon enough. The Iron Howl's engines flared as it powered forward, inching closer to the human warship. Then, without warning, the destroyer simply blinked out of existence. No explosion, no debris, no emergency transmissions, just gone. The bridge of the vigilant spear froze, eyes wide, jaws slack. Drex's claws dug into the arms of his command chair, the metal groaning under the pressure. He stared at the tactical screen where the Iron Howl had been moments before. Now nothing but empty space. "Report!" he barked, his voice shattering the paralyzed silence. The tactical officer scrambled, pulling up logs, sensor data, anything that might explain what had just happened. His hands shook as he read the results. "No weapons detected, sir. No missile trails. No energy discharges. No impact signatures." Drex leaned forward, his voice a low growl. "Then what happened?" The officer swallowed hard. "It's like the ship just shut off. Everything. Instantly. No power, no gravity, no life signs. As if it was deleted." A cold sweat prickled the back of Drex's neck. Deleted. The humans hadn't fired a shot. They hadn't needed to. Whatever technology they had brought to the neutral zone was beyond anything the Empire had faced before. And they had shown it deliberately, not to destroy the fleet, but to send a clear message. "We can end you whenever we choose." On the long-range scans, more movement. The stealth frigates, or at least what Drex guessed were the frigates, began shifting position, not in a formation of retreat or defense. Number. They moved like wolves, tightening a circle around prey. Slow, patient, merciless. Multiple sensor disruptions. The nav officer reported. "They're hurting us, sir, cutting off escape vectors one by one." Drex slammed a fist onto his console. The bridge lights flickered from the force of it. "We are the Imperial Navy," he roared. "We do not get herded like cattle." But the fear on the faces of his crew told him the truth. Titles, uniforms, pride. None of it would stop what was coming. They weren't facing an ordinary fleet. They were facing a hunt. "Deploy ECMs," Drex ordered. "Launch drones. Flood the area with decoys. Give me something, anything, to break their lock." Officers snapped to work, desperate to follow commands, desperate to cling to a sliver of control. Swarms of decoy drones launched into the void, blooming across the battlefield like metal flowers. For a moment, hope sparked on the bridge. Maybe they could scatter the human fleet's formations. Maybe they could regain some ground. And then the hope died. One by one, the drones winked out. Not shot, not destroyed, simply shut down. It was the same silent death that had claimed the Iron Howl. The humans weren't jamming their signals. They were rewriting them, bending machines to their will, like puppet masters pulling invisible strings. Drex's mind raced. He thought of all the legends he had heard, old human tactics during the first wars, rumors of AI infiltration units, viral warfare, silent code attacks that could turn entire fleets against themselves. The Empire had thought those were myths, war stories told to frighten cadets into studying harder. They were wrong. And now they were standing in the middle of a legend made real. Another signal flashed across the bridge displays. This one, even worse than the last. The Earth Hammer. Mk7 had powered up its main guns. The big ones. Guns that could crack open a battleship like a ripe fruit. Drex didn't wait for orders from command this time. "Pull back," he shouted. "All ships retreat to perimeter zone Gamma. Defensive positions only. Do not engage unless fired upon." The fleet moved, sluggish at first, like a beast wounded in the dark, but then faster as captains realized survival depended on speed. Engines roared. Formations broke. Ships spun and retreated, creating distance between themselves and the silent human warship. But Drex knew distance alone wouldn't save them, because whatever the humans had brought to neutral zone 42, it wasn't here to fight a fair battle. It was here to end one before it even began. The Earth Hammer didn't chase them. It didn't even move. It simply drifted forward, slow and steady, its shields glowing brighter now, like a second sun rising in the dark. And somewhere deep inside the ship, Drex didn't know how he knew it, but he knew. Someone was watching them. Not with fear, not with hate, but with cold, calculating patience. Like a chess master, watching pieces slide exactly where they were meant to fall. Captain Drex stood frozen at the center of his bridge, feeling the invisible hand closing around his fleet, his sector, his empire. And for the first time in his long career, he realized the humans weren't just a threat anymore. They were inevitable. The ships of the Imperial fleet drifted farther back, falling into a loose, uneasy ring around the Earth Hammer Mk7. Engines burned bright as captains scrambled to put distance between themselves and the sleeping giant. But the blackness of space swallowed their fear just as easily as it swallowed their light. Captain Drex watched from the bridge of the vigilant spear, every nerve in his body strung tight. They had retreated, but it hadn't changed anything. The human warship floated untouched, undisturbed, untouched by their retreat, almost as if it hadn't even noticed them moving, or worse, as if it had expected it. Drex gritted his teeth. The bridge crew moved in stiff, jerky motions, trying to maintain the appearance of control, but every second that ticked by made it clearer. They were not the ones in charge here. Suddenly, the comms panel crackled to life. No encryption, no codes, no hailing protocols, just a raw signal, tearing through the Imperial systems like a blade. The sound that filled the bridge was not a voice at first. It was a low hum, almost like a machine breathing, deep and slow. The audio feed stabilized, and then, at last, words. 5 words. Simple, plain, terrifying. "Stand down. Return our own." The words floated in the air, hanging over the bridge like the slow fall of a guillotine. Captain Drex stepped closer to the console, his eyes narrowing. "Is that coming from the human ship?" he asked. The communications officer nodded, her hands trembling slightly above her keyboard. "Yes, sir. Direct transmission. No encryption. Open channel. They want us to hear it." The hum deepened, and again the words repeated. "Stand down. Return our own." No threats. No long explanations. No screaming. No promises of mercy or vengeance. Just an order, delivered with a calm certainty that left no room for argument. The bridge fell completely silent. No one dared breathe too loudly. Because they all understood. This wasn't a negotiation, it was a final warning. Captain Drex felt the blood drain from his face. He had seen demands before. Hostage situations, border standoffs, pirate raids, always full of noise and bluster. Threats shouted over open channels, weapons locked and loaded, desperate attempts to scare the other side into flinching first. This wasn't that. The humans didn't sound desperate. They sounded inevitable. "Sir," one of the tactical officers said, his voice shaking, "should we respond?" Drex hesitated. His instincts screamed at him to say nothing, to cut the transmission and run. But that was a coward's choice, and he knew it would only delay the inevitable. He turned toward the main comm station. "Open a reply channel." The officer obeyed, hands moving swiftly, though Drex could see the terror in his posture. A soft chime indicated the line was live. Drex took a deep breath, forcing his voice steady. "This is Captain Drex of the Imperial Navy," he said. "You are trespassing in a restricted zone. Stand down and prepare to be boarded for inspection." Even as he spoke the words, they felt hollow, weak. He knew the humans would not comply. But orders were orders, and he had to at least appear to try. The reply was almost immediate. The hum returned, low, steady, like a sleeping dragon flexing its claws. And then, calmly, "You have 30 minutes, or we will take them back ourselves." No raising of voices, no dramatic threats, just a simple statement of fact. Captain Drex turned toward the tactical display. The timer had already started, 30 minutes counting down second by second, flashing an angry red across the screen. He didn't need to ask who "them" meant. The Empire had taken something, or someone, from the humans. And now the humans had come to collect. He glanced at the intelligence officer. "Find out what they're talking about, immediately." The officer nodded, frantically pulling up records, scrolling through classified reports. Drex watched the scrolling data with a sick feeling growing in his stomach. If they had taken human prisoners, if they had crossed some hidden line the humans considered sacred, there would be no walking away from this. "Sir!" the intelligence officer shouted, voice high with panic. 3 months ago, Black Cell operations. A covert team seized an unregistered human vessel outside the Rim worlds. Crew was captured, transferred to containment in Sector 42 facilities. Drex's eyes narrowed. "How many?" The officer swallowed hard. 5 individuals, sir. 1 adult male, 1 adult female, 3 juveniles, no official registration. Classified under special studies due to anomalies. Drex didn't need to hear more. His heart sank like a stone thrown into deep water. They hadn't just captured humans. They had captured something special. And now, the humans wanted them back. The timer continued to tick down, each beep a heartbeat marching toward the inevitable. 27 minutes left. Drex straightened, his mind racing. Surrender the prisoners? He didn't even know if they were alive anymore. And even if they were, admitting the Empire had taken them would spark a scandal the High Council might never survive. But not surrendering them. That was worse. Much worse. He turned back toward his bridge officers, their faces pale and frightened. Prepare all ships for maximum shield coverage. Set weapons to defensive pattern alpha. And he hesitated, feeling the weight of the moment. Open a secure channel to command. Full priority override. Tell them everything. Now. The bridge crew scrambled to obey, but Drex knew deep down there wouldn't be time. The humans hadn't come asking for permission. They hadn't come to bargain. They had come to take back what was theirs. And unless something changed fast, they would take it. One piece of the Empire at a time if they had to. Outside the bridge's main viewport, the Earthhammer Mk7 remained silent and still. But the stars behind it seemed darker now, closer, as if even the galaxy itself was holding its breath, waiting for the storm to break. 25 minutes left. The bridge of the Vigilant Spear was a storm of whispers and rushed orders, but Captain Drex stood at the center of it all, still as stone. His mind raced faster than any words he could speak. They couldn't win this. Not through force. Not through numbers. The Earthhammer Mk7 was a relic of humanity's darkest wars, a survivor of battles that had broken entire civilizations. And this time, it hadn't come alone. If they fired the first shot, they would die. If they did nothing, they would still die. The only real question left was how. The timer on the main screen ticked down relentlessly. 20 minutes. 19. Then the comms channel flickered again. Not a voice this time. A transmission. A single file. Tactical data, layout grids, combat readiness reports, all from their own fleet. The humans had their entire battle plan, their positions, their weaknesses, their weapons loadouts. It was all there, exposed like a body flayed open for the knife. Captain Drex stared at the data, ice flooding his veins. This wasn't a warning anymore. This was an execution. Sir, the communications officer whispered, We have to surrender. It's the only chance. Surrender. The word tasted like ash in Drex's mouth. He had never surrendered anything in his entire life. But as he looked around the bridge, at his terrified crew, at the cold expanse of space beyond the viewports, he realized this was no longer about pride. It was about survival. 15 minutes left. He opened a new channel, hands steady now, because he had accepted the truth. This is Captain Drex, he said, his voice echoing through the void. We acknowledge your claim, preparing to return the prisoners. No response came back, not even a sound. Just the Earthhammer Mk7, still waiting in silence. Across the fleet, the order rippled outward. Black Cell 42, hidden inside a small asteroid near the neutral zone, was contacted. The prisoners, what was left of them, were gathered. A small shuttle was prepared, fitted with emergency beacons and no weapons. Drex watched it all unfold with hollow eyes. 10 minutes left. The shuttle detached from the asteroid, a tiny spark of light against the endless black. It moved slowly toward the Earth hammer, broadcasting its peaceful intent on every frequency. On the bridge, no one spoke. No one dared breathe. The shuttle drifted closer. Closer. 5 minutes left. The Earth hammer stirred. Not a full movement, just a flicker along its surface. Shields adjusting, engines humming, as if it was waking from a long, deep sleep. Then, slowly, a bay door along the underside of the human warship opened. Light spilled out, not cold and harsh like Imperial lights, but warm, golden, like the glow of a living thing. The shuttle entered the bay and disappeared inside. And the Earth hammer closed itself again, sealing the prisoners and the fate of the Empire inside. The timer on Drex's screen hit 0, and nothing happened. No attack, no destruction, no death. Just silence. Long, endless silence. Captain Drex let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Around him, the crew sagged in their chairs, the unbearable tension draining away like blood from a wound. Maybe, just maybe, it was over. Maybe they had avoided total annihilation. But Drex couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental had changed. Something deeper than treaties and fleets and battle lines. The humans had come into neutral space without fear. They had made their demands without threats. They had forced the Empire to obey without firing a single shot. And then, only then, did they leave. The Earth hammer. MK7 turned slowly, engines flaring to life, casting strange shadows across the fleet. No words, no messages. It simply vanished into the void, slipping away into the endless dark between stars, leaving behind only a memory and a warning. Captain Drex stood at the viewport, watching until even the last echo of the human ship was gone. He knew what the Empire's leaders would say. They would call it an act of weakness. They would vow revenge. They would swear never again to bow before human demands. But Drex had seen the truth with his own eyes. It wasn't weakness. It was survival. And he knew, deep down in the marrow of his bones, that this was only the beginning. The humans had returned. And next time, they wouldn't come with warnings.